Hello there, how are you? Welcome back to How I Did It. Well, y'all, I think this is probably the longest video in all the time I've been on YouTube that I have made. But there's a lot of little hidden nuances or ambiances in putting this fence up. I did not have a come along, so I used a simple ratchet strap. You'll see how I did that coming up. Because this is the welded wire, the vertical wires are just welded on. So when you set your staples, you want to make sure that you put the staples on the horizontal wires. The other thing, when you're getting ready to tension your fence or stretch your fence, you want a couple of those staples on the horizontal wires, not going to interfere with the vertical wire when you pull tension. But you also want to make a point of not hammering that staple all the way down until after you've gotten the fence stretched to the tension that you want. If you do, the fence is not going to tighten up for you, and it's just going to create all kinds of headaches. Alrighty, ask me how I know. Live vicariously through my mistakes, and hopefully it'll make it easier on you. Now, for the most part, here in Central Florida, it's sandy soil. We don't have big rocks or boulders, slate, anything like that. However, we do have roots. Palmettos will run their roots underground for hundreds of feet from one plant to the other. And although this area has been cleared, there are still a lot of roots underneath the surface. Some of these holes were a piece of cake to dig, and other holes, my goodness gracious, they were really a challenge. Definitely a workout. Now, this first side of the fence, when I put it up, I set a couple of my main posts, like for the gate entrance and whatnot. And then I went ahead and on this first 50-foot stretch, I ran T-posts, mainly because I had the T-posts on hand and I knew I was not going to have enough wooden posts. Now, some of you may be asking what was the total cost of this project. I bought a 50-foot roll and a 100-foot roll of the 3-foot 2x4 welded wire. I think total between the two was right around $200. T-posts I already had on hand, and all of the wooden posts I harvested from standing dead trees right here on the property. So for this 50 foot by 50 foot, give or take a couple of feet garden, it really is a pretty economical project. So as you can see there, I'm kind of doing a cheater. I have a power post pounder. I didn't want to get it out because it's so heavy. I have a hand post driver. Left that in Orlando. So I'm using the tractor post driver. How's that? It was all going pretty well until this T-post that we're getting ready to come up to. And doggone it if I didn't end up setting that post in on a root. So to get these T-posts started, I was using a simple sledgehammer. These posts are supposed to be 6-foot T-posts. It sure felt like it was a lot taller than 6 feet. But as you can see, a little bit of a struggle bus going on, but I was able to go ahead and get this thing started. And then at that point, it's kind of nice just being able to lower the bucket area or the fork area down on the T-post. And as you can see, it didn't go straight down like the last one. It just, again, it must have hit a root and just kind of deflected it. So I'm kind of cheating. I'm pulling as I'm pushing. And yeah, I bet you if I pulled this thing out, it would be a crescent moon shape. But hey, it's to keep the cows out. It's not a major security thing. So I was just happy with that, and it was time to move on. Now, this first roll of fencing was supposed to be 50 feet, but it only went to 49 feet. It was a foot short. So I ended up having to, off camera, move my posts a little bit and then just go ahead and get things reset and attached. Now here's where I learned to only nail or staple on the horizontal fence. When you tried to tension this with a couple of those nails being on those vertical wires, which are just welded, it tore the wire off of the horizontal wire. So stay on that horizontal wire with your staples and it'll save you a whole lot of aggravation and frustration. Alright, so I had no come along. I opted to go with the ratchet strap. I used the mechanical end of the ratchet strap to attach to the stationary object, which in this case is the fence post. And then I just used the long end of the strap and wrapped it around these two little pieces of 1x. This was actually an old 1x, 3, that was the slat for an old box spring and mattress wood bed frame. Yeah, that'll tell you. I keep anything and everything for just about forever, and eventually I end up finding some use for it. This worked out fantastic. You know, I used 4 wood screws going through these two pieces of wood to pinch them together on this fence and then put that ratchet strap around it and it stretched it out perfectly. Probably because it was just welded wire. I think maybe if I had had a come along where it had a little bit more oomph, I may have gotten carried away with how much tension I pulled and I could have potentially damaged the fence. So if you don't have a come along and you want to put up fence, don't worry about it. Get a ratchet strap. Ratchet strap at Harbor Freight for a 4-pack is what, $7.99 now? They used to be $5.99. And they work absolutely beautiful. Couple pieces of wood, sandwich the fence between the two pieces of wood, and then just pull it tight. Then on the T-post, use these stupid little T-post wires to hold your fence in place on the T-post. And this side is completed. Now I'm kind of under the gun to get this done because we're coming up to a boatload of rain and I want to have this all in before the rain. So this is the next morning. Obviously we still have sunny skies and all that. So I have started the next stretch of fence to get my other side done, and I'm using the 3-4-5 method to kind of make sure that the front side of this garden is square. So you measure one side 3 foot, the next side 4 foot, and the diagonal coming across between the two should be 5 foot. And in my case, I'm using 6, 8, 10. You can use 12, 16, and 20. They say double it or times it by 2 to get that square formula. Anyway, so my first side here is 6 feet. The second side was 8 feet, and then at my diagonal, it was right on the 10-foot mark. So knowing that this corner is square and where the bottom tape measure is going along the bottom, that will go over 50 feet to my other front corner post on the garden. I don't know why I paused so long on this other than I just think that's an absolutely neat sheet. So here again, I'm just double checking my measurements because I want the garden to be 50 by 50 plus or minus, a couple inches or feet. The other thing is the existing fence line actually runs at a diagonal compared to how I'm setting up this garden. The garden's square onto my barn, and so I wanted the front portion where I just did the 3-4-5 method to be straight. So now I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to get this hole dug. I'm digging all my holes again at 3 foot. I'm setting my fence posts, aka my trees I cut down last week, into the hole. Throw a little bit of the dirt and the sand back down in it, and then I'm washing the other sand and dirt down in with water. And what that does is almost like a quicksand initially, but it creates such a tight pack around these posts, when you go back out to them the next day, it almost feels like you've used concrete to set them in place. Now, I had one post, I did not do my dual lines, so one guideline running on the bottom of the post and the other guideline running on the top. And I actually put one of my posts in way off, and I had to go back and try to get it out. I did not put that on film, but just know it took me the better part of an hour to get that thing out. I tried pulling it out with a rope and the front of my tractor pulling up, and the rope broke twice. No, I didn't have a chain. That was my thought. I need a chain. But what I'm getting at is it creates such a fantastic pack and such a great suction holding that down in there. And for what I need here with this garden, this is just going to be absolutely perfect to keep the cows and the calves out of the area. If I had goats, that might be a different, scenario, but with just the cows, this is going to be more than sufficient. So this is about the halfway point running down the opposite side. I'm going to run it and tie it into the existing fence. That saves me running 50 feet worth of fence and setting 50 feet worth of posts, which is basically a post every 8 to 10 feet. But it is kind of a nice shortcut. It was a money saver. And again, very economical, for lack of better anything. So here I set the posts in, throwing a little bit of sand down there. Once I get the sand set in down around the bottom, the dirt settled around the bottom, shook it a little bit to get things kind of semi-compacted down there. That's when you're going to see me dump the water in on this, and then I'll go ahead and just start wiggling it, getting the air bubbles out, kind of like when you plant a tree. Get all the air bubbles out, and then push the rest of this dirt in down around it, and man, it just locks these wooden posts in. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I gave myself initially about a week to get this project done, and then they said that the rain was coming in, and I knew I wanted to have this done before the rain. That way the rain could really just lock these wooden posts in place. I won't have to worry about it for at least another 10, 15 years. So as you can see, some of the clouds are starting to move in, and that's that front that they were talking about. And you can see in the background how low the pond is, and take note of the final footage of how high the pond is, because we had, oh my goodness, probably 4 days of very consistent sprinkling and at portions downpouring rain. It was just absolutely amazing. It was a blessing because we were so dry, and this is our normal dry season. I'm not complaining, but boy oh boy did it ever fill that pond up. And it's kind of cool the way the grade of the property is, because everything dumps into that pond and the other pond, and then it lets loose back out into the wetlands on the back side over there where I'm standing at. So here I have pretty much all of my wooden posts in place. I still need to put T-posts in between the wooden posts on this side, just as added support eventually. But for right now, this is going to be more than sufficient. So I temporarily put my staples in probably about 3/4 of the way, leaving them loose. That way when I tension this fence, it will move through the staple, and then I'll go back and finish hammering them down all the way. So again, take the 2 pieces of 1x. I'm using 4 wood screws, screwing them together to pinch the wire in between the wood, and then I'm just going to simply put my ratchet strap, the long end, on the wood. And I used, at this juncture of it all, I used the front of the tractor as my stationary point, so I was able to hook the working end of that ratchet strap onto the front of the tractor. Don't have a tractor, no problem. Use your car, use your SUV, use your ATV, use your, I don't know, any other motorized vehicle or something heavy. And then once you're done, just remove it and you now have tension all the way down. So I did go all the way back down and put the nails in. I'm not going to bore you with me hammering nails in. At that point, I had to kind of wrestle this around the corner. I couldn't just lay it down flat to roll it out because it's attached to that end quarter post. Now where I stopped right there is going to actually be an opening for an 8-foot gate, but I opted to go ahead and just roll this wire all the way out straight, especially because the first 50-foot roll of wire was only 49 feet, so I wanted to make sure that this was actually going to be able to make it to the final end post. Once I saw it was going to make it to the final end post, kind of sigh of relief, went ahead and put the 2 pieces of wood pinching the fence in between back on there. I moved the tractor over to this side, and again, I'm just using the tractor as the big stationary edge to hook this ratchet strap onto so I can pull tension on this fence. Now this is only 50 feet worth of fence, so it's 50 feet coming up from the back existing fence, and it's 50 feet from that corner post over to this corner post. This lightweight ratchet strap did the job perfectly. Of course, it wasn't positioned very well, but it still did the job well enough that I could actually push it into place, get the nails put into it, and then get my opening cut where my drive-through gate's going to be on this garden. Now, technically, I don't need a drive-through gate, but for filling the raised beds, I thought that that would be absolutely a must-have. Utilizing the bucket on the tractor, I could use a wheelbarrow, but the saying of work smarter, not harder comes to mind. You know, I'm 60-something years old. The last thing I need to be out here doing is pushing around a wheelbarrow in Florida's 97-degree summer heat. So, got that put in, have it all stretched out, did my cut, and now it's the last stretch of fence, and I just moved it over to this side. So I haven't figured out here if I want a single 8-foot gate or if I want a double 4-foot gate. I'm leaning towards a double 4-foot gate only because it'd be kind of nice to open them both up out and be able to drive straight in, where that big 8-foot gate, you maybe have more sag. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, I am just so happy to be so close to being done on this before this heavy storm comes in. And as you can see, that nice, easy, pulled it taut. A little bit looser on the bottom. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe I didn't have the 2 wooden slats positioned on there properly, but it still is absolutely perfect for what I need, which is to keep the cows out. And again, only nail on the horizontal metal. Now when I did cut the fence, the extra off, I left a little tail, and I did not show this, but I left a little tail so I could bend it back on itself to kind of create a hook over the staple, if that makes any sense. Now it's just a matter of finishing up a couple of staples, and then the outside perimeter of the garden is done, and it will be time to start doing the raised beds. Alrighty then. I want to thank you all for stopping by. Have an absolutely wonderful and blessed day. I'll see you next time. Take care.